And welcome to the first session of our civilizational change process here. Um, it's not a workshop, it's not a training, it's not a dialogue, although I'd like us to dialogue some at the end. Um, it's something new as we go into this new year and this new civilization that is sprouting even as we speak. Um, most of us know that there's something happening right now. Those of us on this call, those of us who are in other groups, such as Commonway, those of us who are just kind of tuned and you kind of feel things are going in a different kind of direction. Um, we have been focused on this for a while. So we have a bit of a head start with folks in terms of this whole issue of consciousness because we're kind of used to thinking differently. Um, the in the face of this, in the face of change, we want to know what to do. Well, I want to know what to do. There's a part of this where we're supposed to see it if we've been paying attention for the last, let's say 30 years or so. But then there's another part of it that um, even though we see it, we can see it coming. How do we deal with it? How do we address it? How do we work with it? So I give you one really big overview, and then I'm going to go through um, the 6 or 7 sessions that we've got in this series. Um, and then I'll be done. Now, there's a part of me saying I'm only going to spend 2 or 3 minutes on each of these 6 or 7 sessions, and we could be done by the end of within a half an hour. Ha ha ha. We'll see exactly how that works, and I will be shocked if that actually works out that way. But I know those of us who are on the East Coast would be appreciative of that. Hmm. So, um, the big issues in terms of how we face the coming change. One of the big issues is to recognize how big the issue is. Um, this is a civilizational change. This isn't, oh, once we get Trump out of office, everything will be fine. Yeah, good luck with that. Once we get back onto the gold standard, or once everybody switches over to cyber cash, everything will be fine. Good luck with all of that. Um, we are in the kind of change that we call metamorphic. This is the kind of change that is caterpillar to butterfly. This is the kind of change where and again, whenever I say this, I have to give credit to Daniel Schmachtenberger for our very brief conversation, which opened up quite a window for me. Um, that in metamorphic change, you can know what the change is by looking at what the being has to do, what the being has to do next in its development. So if you know that the being has to go from drinking milk to eating solid food, its face, jaw bones, jaw muscles have to become stronger and they have to protrude teeth to be able to grasp the food and chew it up, etc. So therefore, its metamorphosis is going to be um, growing and getting stronger and things like that. And I don't know why this is blurring the way that it is. I'm trying to um, wake up the auto auto focus, um, um, the autofocus. Um, haha. Um, I'm cutting all that out. Um, so um, so the more profound the change, the more the metamorphosis has to go deep. So in the change between a child being a milk drinker to being a solid food eater, that's a really subtle change. They don't have to grow antenna. They don't have to start barking like dogs or anything like that. You barely notice the change. If you look at a child when they are 3 months old and look at that same child when they're 9 months old, they look pretty much alike. Um, if you say to a caterpillar crawling around your garden, um, you've got to get down to Michoacan, Mexico, and you got to do it in about 2 months. So get those 20 feet moving and start walking to Mexico. That won't work. So when you look at the the caterpillar to butterfly, you can predict wings once you know that that being is not going to crawl its way to Mexico. Similarly, if we are going through a civilizational change, then if we are becoming a true human species, to be the first human species on the planet, then there's lots and lots of things we have to stop doing. And then lots and lots of things we have to start doing. And once we see that, we can see exactly how profound the shift is from this way of being to this other way of being. I've already said in lots of my other writings and lots of my other videos that the change that we have to go through involves the ending of all of the separative behaviors that we have been exhibiting on this planet for the last 10 to 12,000 years. Um, and I'm talking about things like violence, poverty, um, those having more, and in the face of the suffering of those who have too little. We've got all that stuff going on, and we've got to stop it and stop it quickly. And I don't mean stop it by legislation. You know, the governments of the world have been legislating their way through a whole bunch of stuff, and things don't get better, and all it takes is one demagogue who will then make things a whole lot worse because all these tendencies are still inside of us. So we've got to get these tendencies out. And we've got to change our consciousness in fundamental ways. And that's what we are in the business of doing. That's what we are trying to do. That is what we are working on doing. And it will be fun doing it. Okay, so the way we approach these problems is either with status quo strategies, meaning how do we get back to this wonderful place that human beings have been in for the last several thousand years, or transformative strategies, moving forward into something that we can perceive. If you are about status quo strategies, you should hang up now, go almost anywhere else, any other, video, website, live stream, etc., and you're going to get status quo. Okay. Um, the um, um, the challenge that we've got is knowing that that won't work, but not being upset because it won't work. Okay. Um, if people want to do that, let them do it. It's I'm sure that when the Titanic was going down, there were people who were saying, well, if we take all the deck chairs and we pile them up in the back of the ship, that'll weigh it back down and it'll get itself. Let's try that. Um, okay. We know what happened when they tried that. Um, we don't have to stop anybody from trying something like that. What we have to do is do what we can do to pay attention. That reminds me of a story, a very um, unpleasant story. One of the many, many unpleasant stories that happened on September 11th of 2001. Um, there were people who were trapped above the floor where the airplane hit. So to get through, they were trying to get through the rubble, and it was very, very dangerous. And there's someone from the upper floor saying, "Don't go through there. Just go to the top. Let's go up to the top, and they'll take us off the roof in helicopters." Like that'll be the strategy that gets used. And this one guy said, that's I don't think. I mean, he's using his intuition. I don't think that that's going to work. Oh yes, of course, it's the only way. We can't get through there. And the woman convinced a bunch of other people to walk with her to the roof. This guy kept going through the wreckage, then got to the stairs that were still intact and walked to the bottom, walked out of the building, and did so right as the entire thing was coming down. So he was saved. And of course, everybody that went to the roof died. So we are going to be okay. But the only way we get okay is by paying attention, not to logic. What the woman said about helicopters on the roof made sense. And if you're just listening to logic or you're just listening to a leader, you're going to go that way. When you listen to what's calling you, the you're going to do things a different way. Um, since I'm completely outside of my time right now, I'll tell you there's another September 11th story. This guy worked in um, the in one of the towers, and he was on his way into the building, and he had to pass um, the the Cinnabon That's the place with that sells cinnamon buns, and he smelled them. This is not the first time he had ever smelled them. And you know that I always thought their cinnamon buns were nasty, but they smelled delicious. So he succumbed that day. He's like, I don't know why I'm stopping, but I'm going to buy cinnamon buns for the office. So he stopped in, and stopping at Cinnabon saved his life. If I were him, I'd buy stock in Cinnabon. Um, and so we don't know what's going to happen. Anybody who tells you they know what's going to happen is not telling you uh, the facts. Okay, and I don't, what I mean by that is we all know that there's going to be weather dislocations. We got those already. There's going to be flooding over here, there's going to be drowning over here, over there. There'll be more hurricanes on this ocean, and then cyclones and tornadoes on that side of the ocean. We know that. Um, there'll be more earth shaking changes. There'll be more volcanoes going off. There'll be more earthquakes going off. We know that. Okay. We don't need to get hit over the head with that. Um, someone said recently, um, if the power goes off, we should be prepared for that to happen. And they want to have meetings to do power preparedness stuff. Great idea. Okay. Because whatever happens, power's going to go off. It's like, um, too many of my crows get on the power line, that power line's going to come down. So you might as well get ready to not have the power. Okay. But if you say that, oh, we know that, Trump is going to do this, or the stock market's going to do that, or, we don't know those things. And so therefore, we should be prepared for just about anything. And the thing that we should be most prepared for is the thing that I can help you get through. And that's the clarification of yourself, the clarification of your consciousness, the clarification of your relationship with yourself, with others, with the earth, with your own spirit. And that's what this series is about. So let's walk you through the elements of the series. First element of the series is what we're doing right this second. Um, and that is getting an overview. Let's take a look at all the things that we're going to do over the next month. Um, these are not kind of randomly selected. These are the things that I think are um, foundational for you to look at the core of yourself and look at who are you going into this new change. Okay. So the things that I've got there are things that I think are core to what we're doing. A lot of us think the core is going to be physical, like, tornadoes, so I'm going to build a stronger house. Financial, I'm going to put all my money in gold or bitcoins or whatever. We think it's going to be technical. So I'm going to buy generators, I'm going to buy food preservers, or we think it's going to be political. I'm going to go get a bunch of guns and I'm going to protect myself and none of those things is the answer. Um, that doesn't mean you shouldn't do things like know where your food is going to come from or know where your water is going to come from. But the answer isn't fixing those things. The answer is not a temporary fix of anything. The answer is addressing our core of civilization itself. what do we even mean by civilization? What do we mean when we say we're civilized people? When we start looking at what we have done, um, over the course of our last century, and as we have entered this century, have we acted in any way as though we were civilized people? If we were space aliens and coming down and looking at what these beings were doing to each other in the name of being civilized, if we looked at Gaza, if we looked at Ukraine, if we looked at Haiti, if we looked at these things, would we say these people were civilized? Um, we know that, well, we know that being uncivilized means somebody who acts differently from what I act, because whatever I do is civilized. Okay. Um, Once we get over that and start looking at what we're doing, what we actually do, we start noticing that um, we've oversold ourselves on how civilized we are. The fact that a few people act in a particular way um, doesn't mean that we as humanity are civilized. And our leaders don't even act as the ones that say we are civilized are the ones that don't act civilized. Um, I think that might be one of the reasons why the Epstein revelations are so shocking to people because the people we think of as our leaders are do as I say do, not as I do, especially when I'm on Epstein's island. Um, so the answer isn't status quo. The answer is to address the core elements of civilization itself. And we will be doing that over the course of the next 6 weeks. The answer is addressing the key elements of consciousness. What does it mean for us to be conscious? And we'll be addressing those elements over the next 6 weeks. We'll be looking at everyday events, and we're going to be looking at them through a different um, lens. We'll be looking at them through a different way of addressing uh, our human condition. We're taught to look at things from the point of view of um, conservatives and progressives, right and left, or look at things from the point of view of whites and blacks or whites and other people. Um, we looked at things like the super rich and the ultra poor, and all these things are largely irrelevant to where we're going as a civilization. So we're going to be looking at things from the point of view of consciousness and from the point of view of breaker consciousness, the consciousness of I am separate, the consciousness of the Solon, and on the other hand, um, looking at things from we are one, we are together, we are all related to each other, and that consciousness is what we call holonic consciousness. And we'll be looking at things that way. So let's do a quick overview of the elements. Um, One element I'm called the first element that we will talk about is deep spirituality, then deep identity, deep culture, deep relationships, and deep governance. And then we'll do a session where we tie it all together. So let's look first at deep spirituality, or what I'm calling life beyond religion. This is a very important issue, and we have to walk very carefully here because we don't want people thinking that I am or we are um, disputing or dismissing their deep spiritual beliefs. I have deep spiritual beliefs. I'm looking down the list of people on the call, and all of us have deep spiritual beliefs. Um, and those deep spiritual beliefs may be different. I happen to know that many of our beliefs are different. That's okay. We don't have to have unanimity of particular beliefs. And that's the thing that makes the holonic consciousness different. That makes deep spirituality very different from religion. Um, Deep spirituality is your relationship to the divine and your relationship to all other beings. But that doesn't mean you have to dress a particular way, wear a particular kind of clothing, go to a particular building at a particular time, and do particular practices and keep information away from those folks over there and give information to these folks over here. None of that has anything to do with your spiritual reality. Um, and remember, one of the key elements of the holonic, let's call it holonic revolution, um, is that no ant can tell another ant what to do. And if we are all here in the same colony, if we're in the same boat, if we're in the same hive, I'm doing my thing and I'm trying to make this the best hive possible, and you're doing your thing and you're trying to make the best hive possible. We may be doing different things, and that's okay. Um, it'll there is a superordinal focus, order, consciousness that keeps everything running. And that's when we become part of that, then even if we're doing different things, we know we're pulling in the same direction and have the same goals. Um, Now, a couple of goodness gracious, we'll be here uh, all night long. um, yeah, I'm going to try my best not to be here all night long too. Um, but here's a question: what does spirituality look like when you remove culture? Um, in many of the monotheistic religions, um, women are told to cover themselves up. This is true in Islam. It has been true in Christianity for hundreds of years. Um, but women were being told by men to cover themselves up before the religion came through. Before Jesus said anything, women were still being told to cover themselves up. Before Muhammad said anything, women were told to cover themselves up. And it's not in the books. It's not in the Quran. It's not in the Bible, but they're told that anyway. So, what happens to spirituality when you remove these elements of culture that sneak their way into the each one of these practices as a religion? What does spirituality look like when you remove the rules and regulations? You know, that says you have to do things a particular way. I've used this as an example before. Um, and this happened in, I think, the 70s. Um, the Church of England, the Anglican Church, was dying. Fewer and fewer people coming to services. And what was happening is that young people, like teenagers, maybe young adults, were going into the churches around Vespers. That's after afternoon, evening practices. And they were listening to the singing that was going on. And this is right around sunset. And so they would lie down on the pews and look up at the stained glass windows. I mean, the sun streaming through these stained glass windows. And they were smelling the incense and they were listening to the music. And the church organizers, the ones that are in control, kicked them all out. You can't do that this way. You can't lie down and listen to this. You have to sit up and listen to this. And because of the difference between lying down and sitting up, they kicked all these young people out of the church. And it's like you don't get it. It's like they would rather have an empty building than have people who are doing anything that was outside of their mental construct. Um, Now, of course, there's some things that would be disruptive of the service. And you could then be able, like, if they were lying down and people want to sit down, there are no seats available, you tell them to sit up, okay? But having um, rules and regulations enforced, especially when the rule has the rules, the culture, the regulations have nothing to do with your spirituality. Then that's when things get weird. Okay, and that's what we don't do. We will be practicing. We are, and we will be practicing deep spirituality, and letting go of um, command, control, etc. Um, okay, the next week, that will be our third week. That'll be the 13th of January. We will be looking at deep identity. What does our life look like when I am living my authentic truth and I'm not living in my ego? Um, and to I'll give you a something that happened to me some years ago that um, I think it will represents this. I was down in the Bay Area for a while, and somebody invited me to the Green Gulch Zen Center, and it's a beautiful day. So the meeting, the gathering, took place in a big tent outdoors on their grounds. And the monk that was giving the talk um, had this really sing-songy kind of voice, and he was putting people to sleep. I was drowsy. This is a great morning to just take a nap in a beautiful, like warm sunshine kind of place. So he's kind of talking and he's droning, and then he stops. I mean, he stopped so abruptly, I looked up and he said, "Who are you?" And he paused for a second. He said, "What do you want?" And then he goes back to his talk. And I thought, that was weird. Um, and so he's talking for another 2 or 3 minutes or so. And he stops again and he says, "Who are you?" And he pauses and he says, "What do you want?" And this actually woke me up. And so I said, I'll bet he's going to do this again. And I'm going to have a good answer prepared for me, like who am I and what do I want? So a couple minutes go by and he stops again. "Who are you? What do you want?" And when he asked, it's like, well, that's not who I am, and that's not what I want. So after he does this 3 or 4 more, I mean, every 2 or 3 minutes, he would just stop and say, "Who are you? What do you want?" I started getting pissed off because I'm like, I'm what 35 years old. I've been in the world. I've had a measure of success. I should know who I am. I should know what I want. And this little twerp up there, monk twerp, was pointing out that I did not know who I was, and I did not know what I wanted. That all of the things I was telling myself were approximations or what everybody wanted of me, but not what I wanted. So then, by the time he got to the end of his talk, I realized that these were ultimate questions. I may never have answers to those questions. That even the process of working through an answer to the question is the thing that leads my life, is the thing that I am. Um, it's my personal quest. Back in the good old days, people would go on quests that find themselves, or you go to the mountaintop, you have your vision quest, etc. And now we get to do that together, and we get to look at our deep identity aspects. Um, okay, and I'm act like I have a little bit of discipline here and go on to the next one. On the 20th of January, we're going to be focusing on deep culture, getting beyond our separations. All of this is to help us to understand what do we mean when we say that we are human beings? What do we mean when we say that we're having a human experience on this planet at this time? We all volunteered to be here now. Sometimes I keep wanting I want to ask, where's the contract? I want to check the fine print because I don't remember signing up for all of this. But uh, we we decided to be here at the turn of this um, reality. And it's a pretty interesting time. Um, for those of you who have done, okay, so we use culture to separate us from each other. It's possible to use the same thing, the same kind of culture to connect with each other. It's just a choice that we're making. Um, and we have to make those choices differently. those of you who have done my workshop on deep identity know that there are 5 markers that I use to look at the issue of who we are. Uh, issue marker number 1 is race, ethnicity, and culture. Back up a step. By deep identity, I mean the parts of your identity that were in place before you could think about them. The parts of your identity that were in place before you developed the capacity for rational thought. Now, you think that, we like to think that we came out of the womb, reading Plato or something, but we didn't. And uh, child psychologists say that we develop concrete, abstract, rational thought somewhere around 6 or 7 or 8 years old. But most of your identity is in place before 6 or 7 or 8 years old. A lot of your identity is in place from, a couple of weeks old, maybe even before that. And so the things that trip us up are the things that were in place before you could think about them. You don't call that your identity or your culture. You call that reality. And when somebody comes up to you with a completely different reality, it triggers you. And a lot of the wars that we see happening on our planet right now are just because people are triggered by their other. And what happens when you get triggered around a deep identity issue is you want to get rid of that person. Can't get rid of yourself. Oh yes, you can, but we'll work on that in February. Um, but yes, you want to push that person away from you because you don't quite know why, but there's something wrong with them. Okay. So now I can tell you the 5 elements that I look at are number 1, race, culture, and ethnicity. When you are 2 years old, you roll the whole thing into one ball and you deal with it. Number 2 is language, the language that you speak. Um, can you remember the time you heard somebody speaking a language that was not your primary language and how upset you felt? How how there's something wrong here. Um, um, there's the game just changed and nobody told me the rules. Number 3 is class and what class you were born into, what you could do, what you couldn't do in my case. Was all elements of class. And again, you didn't think of it. You just thought that, you know, it's normal to get a new car every year, you know, or it's normal not to have a car and to ride a bus everywhere. Um, and Number 4 is your religion or your cultural belief. And number 5 is gender. From the time you came home from the hospital, wrapped in a blue blanket if you were a boy, wrapped in a pink blanket if you were a girl, people started treating you differently at that point. And why? It goes back tens of thousands of years, way back before they had pink and blue blankets. But instead of having these elements separating you, is it possible to have these elements bring you together? And that's what we'll be exploring when we talk about deep culture. Um, the next one, on the 27th of January, we'll be talking about deep relationships. And by relationships, I mean the reasons we talk to other people, the reasons we have relationships with other people. Um, uh, I don't want to talk particularly about economics. What I do want to talk about is how do we interact with people to satisfy our needs, to satisfy our goods and to get our goods and services, to connect with each other. You've heard me talk about um, the fact that I like my apartment building, and if any of my neighbors will walk by, yes, I like you, um, but I don't need them for anything. I don't have a need for them. If they move out, it's like, okay, bye. Somebody else will move in, and I'm probably going to like them too. Um, I contrasted that with the guy who wrote the book. Uh, there's a space in my brain now um, where I keep names of places, people, events, etc. And that space in my brain is getting covered like with jello. It's not concrete yet. It's not that I can't get to it. It just takes a while for me to be able to get to it. Um, this guy wrote the book Community and the Politics of Place. He's a friend of mine. I only see him once every several years. So I don't his name's not right front and center right now. And he was telling me how um, he lived in eastern Montana, and he said, living in rural eastern Montana, we absolutely relied upon our neighbors for everything. He said, we would have died if it weren't for our neighbors. And he said, we didn't like our neighbors. There's nothing about them that we liked. My mother didn't want us playing with their bad kids. They drank, they cussed, they did everything that you don't want them to do. And at harvest time, they were there and we harvest our fields together. At lambing time, and I had never got a definition for lambing, but I'm sure it involves lambs. Um, they helped them lamb, if that's a verb. Um, and so we've changed that. In 100 years, we've changed it so we can like people, but we don't need them for anything. We're going back. Think about the people who are around you, and you know, I'm not talking about potlucks. I'm talking about if you're eating food, you're eating it with other people. If you are staying warm, you're staying warm with other people. And is it possible um, to do that um, um, with in such a way that everyone wins? And I don't want to stop and take comments right now, but I saw the comment that Jenna just put up where that lambing is when the herds of sheep give birth to their lambs. I figured that much out, but what the hell's that got to do with me? It's like, it's like, okay, I'm going to come out tomorrow and I'll just count lambs. It's like, leave me out of this. Okay. Um, but I want to share something with you. I've shared this with a number of you. You remember, and you remember I talk about the that I was asked to be a delegate to Forum 2000, and this is some of the Forum 2000 elements. Um, this is a very big deal. Um, this photo down here is like me and the boys. This is Adam Michnik, who was the theoretician behind Lech Walesa and the Warsaw um, uprising. This guy was a foreign minister in Argentina, but they had so many of them. He was the foreign the finance minister of the month. Um, and these other guys had names too. This picture of me and the chief rabbi from in Tel Aviv made the front page of the newspaper because here's this guy with this Muslim sounding name drinking orange juice with this guy with this Jewish sounding name. And I'm like, so what? We're drinking orange juice. Is that going to solve any of the difficulties in that existed in that region? Um, if you want to see my seat, I was sitting right there. Henry Kissinger was sitting right there. Hillary Clinton was sitting across from us right here. Václav Havel was sitting up at the head of the table because it was his table. Um, we're sitting in this amazingly ornate room. And so there's 40 of us at the table, and then there's another 200 people looking at that. And this was broadcast live through Europe for 4 days. So this is a really big deal. And for the first day, people are looking at me and saying, who the hell is he? And for the first day, meeting all these people I had just heard about, I was asking myself, yeah, who the hell am I to be doing this? And it took me a couple of days to recognize that I represented something and Havel knew this, that I represented a way of looking at the world. Okay. And that way is inclusivity, of looking at the world as though we are one. Anyway, so somewhere down here, there was a member of parliament from Australia. I remember his name was Gareth. Um, and he makes one of these, like, make sure you clear your throat and have and say this with great solemn um, effect that in globalization, there are going to be winners and losers. And our job as, of course, the winners, have to, um, we're going to be generous and magnanimous to all the people who will be the losers, meaning the rest of the world. And when my turn came up to talk, I said, can you imagine a world where there are no losers, where no one has to lose? And from the look on his face and the look on the other 40 delegates that are looking at me, Henry Kissinger kept looking at me like, what language is he speaking? We all had earphones that would translate for us. Maybe mine are broken. I don't understand a word he's saying, you know. Um, and um, and they didn't, because the notion of winning and losing is steeped into the consciousness of breaker society. It's an integral part of the breaker society. You just get to choose whether you're going to be on the winning side or the losing side. Um, we, even the people who think of themselves as enlightened, The people who think of themselves as awake or aware, they think that their enlightenment is personal to them. That I did all these workshops, I did all of these trainings, I went and swam with the dolphins, I did all this other stuff, and therefore, therefore, I get awakened. I'm awakened. But all those other people, oh, they can fend for themselves. This is my awakening. We're not going to make it if we don't make it together. And together means working with the neighbor you really actively don't like to make sure that they stay alive because their life and your life are codependent, co-relational with each other. And if you think you can go somewhere and buy a piece of land and put up a house and get a generator and all this other stuff, good luck with that. Okay, and we'll see how that works out for you. I have no investment in that. So this is the part where somebody else's video of we'll get you, we'll take care of your needs if you do such and such, etc. Um, one more uh, element of what I was talking about. Then I'll get to the last point where we're just about at the last point here. I want to show you a picture. Um, First picture is well, the one that you just saw already, and that is here, this room, the room that we were in, and also you can see it here too. Amazingly beautiful room, and it's called the Spanish Room, and this is in Prague Castle. And I went over to the window. I was looking out the window at Prague Castle, and there was something I was seeing that I couldn't. I remembered the view, and there was something really significant about the view out the window. And it came to me, and this is one of the creepier moments of my life. Um, this is the view that I remembered. And that guy is Adolf Hitler. And he was standing right where I was standing, where you see his hands. My hands are down on that windowsill, right where his hands were, um, as he was encompassing the capitulation of Czechoslovakia to the Nazis. And um, this was my 1 degree of separation moment from Adolf Hitler. That is, I mean, on the one hand, you want to pull your hands back, go and wash, take a shower, like, change clothes, like, ew. On the other hand, it's like, um, and somebody said it more accurately, that if you take a breath, you have molecules of air in your lungs that Jesus breathed, but you also have molecules of air in your lungs that Adolf Hitler and Pol Pot and Joseph Stalin and maybe it's gotten around far enough, even Donald Trump breathed. And that's our legacy, and we need to be dealing with all of it. Okay, so so I got to say one more thing about deep relationships. When I was in the Himalayas, this time in Nepal, I was in Kathmandu, and I wanted to get some black salt. Um, Black salt, you make regular lemonade and you put black salt in it. and it takes your taste buds and twists them around, turns them sideways, and say, "How do you like that?" Great stuff. Hard to find, and it's really black. It's not, deep pink or anything like that. And I went to the market, and I had a translator with me. And where can I get black salt? And the first stall we went to, guy didn't know. He said, but I think the guy that's around the corner has some black salt. So he locks up his little stall. I mean, just closes the door, locks it up, and he and I go walking around, and the translator go walking around the corner, and we talk to that guy. And no, I don't have any black salt, but the guy across the street and down by a block has some. Um, that guy locked his door, and so now I've got these two merchants and the translator. And we go to the next guy and said, "Oh, no, I don't have any black salt, but I think so and so had." At one point in time, there are 10 or 15 people walking with me. And there's a part of me like, do they think I'm going to pay all of them for when we find the black salt? Um, but they were just being in relationship with me. They all had the same questions. When did you get here? How long are you going to be here? Where are you staying? Um, what's your country? Um, the few who had some English wanted to try their English out on me. And this turned into a 20 or 30-minute sojourn of the search. The first guy would drop out, two more people would get picked up. Um, the for this half an hour, we were all in relationship with each other. The purchase or the sale of the salt was immaterial. After a while, it didn't matter. What mattered was we had a good time. Okay. When I finally found the black salt, it's like everybody's like, okay, great, thank you. Then I had to shake everybody's hand, and we found the salt. And um, how many of us would have taken the time to do that? You know, to literally um, be in a sale that would open up those kinds of doors. Um, we don't have deep relationships in our society now. When we talk about the number of people who say that they are lonely, they are depressed, that things are happening in their lives and they can't talk them out because there's no one to talk to. I mean, yeah, you can do a tweet, you can post something on social media and get a whole bunch of likes, whatever the hell a like is. Okay. Um, all of that is robbing something from us. Now, all of you know I use all of that stuff. Use I'm everything I'm doing right now or saying right now is going out on YouTube at some point in time. Um, I'm going to try to process this as fast as I can. Um, we can we can make a world of meaning, but we have to know we have to make it, and we have to make that world of meaning across all the lines that may separate us. And I have a lot more to say about that, but I'll wait until the 27th of January to say it. Last one is looking at the issue of deep governance, can we look at the governance issues beyond politics, beyond we think our political institutions are forever and no, they're not. Okay. Um, the current political parties have a real, I mean, they've got a strangle grip on government. Um, and we need to have a completely different way that we govern our behavior for the common good. Um, we don't need to take over the mechanisms of that governance structure because it's been tainted for so long. Um, that we can develop our own governance structures. And this is what Václav Havel was talking about in his book, uh, and brain is gone again, Living in Truth. It's not gone that far. It's just Jello. um, and we can, with the space that's available to us, the space that the society leaves, we can create a new way of looking at ourselves and looking at each other in that space. Uh, okay, so that's what we're gonna start with, and we've already started this. What's what we're going to be angling toward on the 6th of January. Um, I want to, I would like this to be about an hour and a half. But it really depends a lot on how many new people who are not, uh, have not done any other Commonway work, are in the process because we have to do new concepts with them. Um, and whether we're going to do any exercises. And I'm looking forward to seeing if we have enough people in enough areas to do exercises. And I don't want to talk about exercises now. I'm not going to talk about it unless we're going to do them. Okay. I think that's about it for me. Let's go through a couple of the issues that were in your chat, and I can ask a few questions. And Jenna said I don't look blurred. Really? Because I was really blurred. Okay. Um, Jenna also talked about the Holocaust, and I find it interesting. And one of the I've been to Auschwitz twice. Most people don't go once. And once was on a personal pilgrimage. And the second time was I participated in a workshop at Auschwitz, which I thought was pretty powerful. Um, in the workshop, I was flanked on both sides by a person who had survived Auschwitz as a child. He was an older man at the time. On the other side, by an African woman who survived the killing fields in Rwanda and Burundi. She told the story about having one of her 6 children with her up hiding in the attic, listening to her neighbors killing her other children one by one. And I remember looking at her and thinking, how can you survive that? I mean, I don't know how I could. I don't even have any words for that. Um, and um, and that's that part of that is the legacy that we have to transcend. And obviously, so the saying that came out of um, uh, the Holocaust was never again. But we just found out that never again meant never again to us. It's okay for us to do it to somebody else, but this would be a crime. What happened, what the Israeli Defense Forces did in Gaza was a crime against humanity. But if you think you're the only human beings that can have somebody can commit a crime against humanity, that blowing up your hospitals, killing, taking out your food, killing your family, etc., none of that is really a problem. Um, we are the ones. Our government can't do it, very obviously. We are the ones that have to be saying never again to anyone from anyone, period. You don't get to do that. Um, um, that a that people who do that are not civilized, and I don't care if they're sitting in their suits. I meant to mention that the pictures in at Forum 2000. I was wearing a suit. Hey, um, I think I look pretty good in it. Um, I wonder if what would happen if I dusted off the suits that literally are gathering dust in the closet. Um, but we are the ones who have to be the leaders that say, no, we are changing this story. And I don't mean leaders in that system. We need to make that entire system obsolete. We need to make the entire system non-functional. We need to make the entire system functional on a whole other level. Okay. Um, we have had um, um, for those of us who are thinking about reform, we have had half a century to do all the reforming. It did not work. So let's not keep um, um, going down that road that doesn't take you to where you want to go. We can go down a whole other road, and we can combine our spirituality and our cultures and our identity and this thing that I've been talking about, this holonic consciousness, where all of our consciousness blend together, and we can use that to be the source of a whole new way of being. Um, uh, as someone said, they will ridicule us, and then they'll oppose us, and then they'll go along. Not only go along, they'll say they came up with it, and we'll say, "Oh yes, you did. Thank you very much." Yes.